These wire barriers are designed to stop accidents from spilling over into other traffic, but the Shadow Minister for Roads says motorcycle riders have genuine concerns that the barriers create a risk.
It's very dangerous. They're called the tree shredders for reasons that if people do slide underneath them, they may well be cut or have parts of their body severed. So I think it needs testing.
The Motorcycle Council of New South Wales says any rider which crashes into the wire barriers, designed to crumple on impact, is likely to be maimed. The Labor member for Wallsend and former member of the Stay Safe Committee says that they are effective and there are in fact studies being conducted on them.
A familiar chant broke out after workers voted unanimously to continue the picket during daytime hours.
Workers united will never be defeated.
Workers also agreeing to lift restrictions and assist in the removal of material going in and out of the factory. With entitlements expecting to be received by this Friday, the Textile Clothing and Footwear Union says the historic fight at Rutherford is over. The attention now turned to other sacked workers.
Well, the fight goes on. We need legislation passing, as I said, to make sure that all workers' entitlements are covered, and it needs to be done sooner rather than later.
Meantime, sacked Scone Fresh Meats workers marched onto Senator John Tierney's office in Newcastle this afternoon. Presenting the Senator with signed petitions and demanding they receive almost $700,000 in entitlements. Senator Tierney wasn't in, but his electoral officer promised to pass the petitions on to Canberra. The union arguing workers deserve the same agreement Rutherford textile workers were offered.
The message should be loud and clear. You've done one rescue package for somebody 90 kilometres away. These people fit that criteria. 100 cents in the dollar, Mr Howard, nothing less.
Critical of how his team started against the Knights, coach Lee Sterry wasn't too happy about their finish either. Veteran Andy Harper, sent from the field after this incident and back play, he's now suspended.
Harper's got to look at himself. He got a soft yellow card in the last couple of minutes against Marconi. It was just a stupid yellow card for mine. We spoke about that, and then he's got frustrated again on Friday night and now cost the team a lot.
Skipper Shane Price moved one yellow card away from a second suspension as the team heads towards the business end of the season. But Sterry is giving many players a wake-up call as push comes to shove in the race for the semi-finals.
There was maybe a few blokes that probably thought their position may be set in concrete, and that's never the case.
The team to play Adelaide will be chosen tonight, and with Chris Tanchaski unavailable to replace Andy Harper, it leaves Luke Tomic as the only fit striker in the Breakers squad.
I'm pretty sure the way I'll go, but the blokes that come in have got to have the respect of themselves and the rest of the team that they're going to come in and do a job.
It was a finish that's become folklore. Sherelle McMahon's last second shot captured the imagination of a nation, a world championship, and capped one of the most memorable sporting wins in history. Netball Australia is now planning to ride that wave of success to Newcastle, one of the sport's strongholds, to host the only home test match against the Kiwis at the Entertainment Centre in June, but also scheduled 3 National League matches.
This competition is without doubt the strongest netball competition in the world.
The Sydney Swifts will play in all 3 games scheduled at Newcastle during the year, with the newly married and local girl Reagan Jackson now able to play in her hometown.
I don't think you can underestimate the feeling that you get playing in front of your actual, where you've been born and bred.
Reagan played in the highly popular match for the Swifts in Newcastle last year, and the clash with rival Sydney Sandpipers will be a highlight, with fellow Novocastrian Danielle Harvey in the opposition.
I know a lot of people that have said to me, I've seen you on telly, I've seen the Sandpipers play, when are you coming up to play in Newcastle? I can finally say, yes, we're coming, and make sure you're at the game.
Netball now on its way to filling the Falcons' void.
I believe that in this community it's got greater potential, to be quite honest, than the NBL did at the time.
Jim Callanan, NBN News.
It's easy to see why this coastal and lakeside stretch has captured the imagination of developers. Now, after more than a decade of different proposals and protests, a plan that looks like it'll finally go ahead. When completed, it's envisaged the lot just south of Swansea will include residential estates, 4 retail centres and tourist accommodation as well.
I realise it's really only the first step. The land, when the LEP is made, will have a new zoning, and then we have to evaluate that zoning as part of our master planning process.
Last night, the rezoning of 605 hectares was given the green light. The project formulated over a 3-year period under the watchful eye of council.
I think that the level of that scrutiny has assisted in making sure that the best possible solution has now been arrived at.
It even managed to pass the scrutiny of nearby residents who say devoting a third of the land to conservation reserve is the best they could hope for.
We've got the best possible outcome we could have got. We have gains on the conservation areas. The council has become the owner of the 7E land, that is the wildlife corridor. So all in all, under the circumstances, we've done pretty well.
The project is expected to provide the lake with 12,000 jobs during the development phase and close to 2,000 permanent positions. The first land release could be on the market by the end of next year. Helen Kapelos, NBN News.
While the team to play Penrith was named today, Coach Warren Ryan was quick to point out it's by no means final.
I don't know whether Matthew Gidley's going to be right for the weekend, and I'm doubly unsure whether Adam McDougall will be all right.
With that in mind, winger Lenny Beckett is on standby once again, while Tamana Tahu is on the bench. Injury problems forcing Ryan to break his routine of naming 4 forwards on interchange.
And Sean Rudder going into hooker. I've lost the versatility of the 4-forward bench with Rudd's versatility, so I've got to come up with the backs.
And with the Anzac Test fast approaching, thoughts of representative football are also flowing in the minds of players.
I suppose I do think about it. I think not only the fact that I played last year, I think if you ask 90% of the players in the competition, do they think about rep football, I'll say yeah, and it certainly is one of the motivating factors to play well.
While Matthews, the incumbent 5'8", brother Andrew, has to oust Brett Kamali if it's to be a Johns double in the halves.
He's playing great football at the moment, so it sort of spurs me to try to play at another level, both on the field, and makes me train a little bit harder. So it can only be good for myself and probably for the side.
For the parents of Wade Hartman Evans, the truth about their son's death may remain a mystery forever. In July 1998, the baby astounded medical authorities when he was delivered just 28 weeks into a difficult pregnancy at John Hunter Hospital. But unfortunately, the odds of surviving were stacked against him just 16 hours after his birth when a nurse administered 5 times the dose of the drug aminophyllin. 3 months later, he died from meningitis. Today in Newcastle Court, Coroner Michael Morahan delivered an open finding into exactly what caused the onset of meningitis. He found that while several complicated factors may have predisposed him to the deadly disease, medical experts could not pinpoint the exact cause of death. He also accepted that human error had been involved. But Wade's parents stated through their lawyer today that they believe their child was neurologically compromised before the onset of meningitis. They're also pursuing disciplinary action against the nurse involved through the New South Wales Healthcare and Nurses Registration Board. Helen Kapalos, NBN News.
Hunter business people attending today's forum recognised the need for change in the region after the recent breakdown of major industries. Speakers explained a renewal of industries is vital to prosper in future years. Dr John Burke, an expert in international trends in leadership, suggested that as coal declines as a primary fuel source, it has other possibilities, including being developed into topsoil.
As it costs Australia $5 billion a year in soil degradation alone, that would be a huge business.
Dr Burke says coal workers could also be reskilled for developing industries. Experts in the union movement say they also must be prepared to change. Unions are currently in a period of restructuring and looking at adopting new practices for the labour market in Australia.
The blue collar areas are closing down, BHP, there are mine closures in the Hunter Valley, and there are emerging industries in technology and service sector, and the unions need to be adapting to these new sectors so they can continue to organise workers.
Evan Wilkes, NBN News.
David Fairley may be a kangaroo forward, but he was surplus to requirements when Manly and North Sydney merged last year. But it's proved to be their loss. When coach Warren Ryan laments how many top-line players he'll lose to State of Origin duties, the big prop is near the top of his list.
Dave Fairley's back to the form that he's displayed when he was a representative player. And he's not 30 yet, so I mean, he's not out of the possibility for selections either.
I'd like to play rep football, you know, and I know I can handle that no worries, but you know, I'm not holding my breath. If they pick me, that'd be great. If not, you know, I'm not going to be that worried about it.
Though he didn't make the Knights run on side at the start of the year, he's now formed a formidable front row combination with Tony Butterfield. Man of the match against Canberra last Sunday, the 29-year-old is getting over the advantage line more often than not and hasn't lost the skills that took him to the top when he was more of a wide-running back rower.
You know, I can see some improvement in my game, and I'm sure that the team can see a lot of improvement as well. So if we can just keep going along now and try not to peak too early, hopefully things will work out.
And the Northern Eagles took to the Tartan track in a bid to boost their season. Up against the Sharks at Brookvale this weekend, the man who stayed on at the Eagles, perhaps at the expense of David Fairley, played First Division last week and is hoping to make a comeback to the top grade this weekend.
I hope they'll get through the game unscathed and stay up in paddock as long as I can and help the Northern Eagles to a good win.
Organisers had their fingers crossed the recent rainy weather would clear for day one of competition. This morning their prayers were answered, blue skies and a clean 1.2 metre swell.
Conditions are perfect for the first day of the Lost Wild Surf Co Pro Junior. Hopefully it'll last for 3 more days.
A record number of grommets will take to the water this year, the event attracting more than 230 entrants. The 20 years and under division will feature a host of hot young talent, including Central Coast surfer and former world junior champion Adrian Buchan, who arrives tomorrow. And for the first time, the event has turned international. Hawaii, Indonesia and the United States all flying in some of their top juniors.
As that international pro junior circuit grows and gets more organised, we want to be a major player on that.
This year's Surf Fest Pro Junior has proven so popular, organisers are already planning to expand next year's event to a 5-day competition. Evan Wilkes, NBN News. It's their first visit to the Hunter, and the 6 delegates from the Olympic Council of Ireland liked what they saw. Delegates say the forum at the University of Newcastle will provide the perfect pre-games training venue, giving their team a better chance of taking home a pot of Olympic gold.
We wanted to get away from Sydney, which is too busy, too hectic, and they'll have enough activity like that during the Games and during the Olympic Village. So this is like a little oasis.
Mr Hickey, who's also a member of the International Olympic Committee, says the Hunter was chosen because of its first-rate facilities and close proximity to Sydney. Apart from the rowers who'll be training in Grafton, all of the 100-strong Irish Olympic team will arrive in the Hunter in August for pre-games training. They'll train here for 4 weeks before moving into the Sydney Olympic Village. And during the Games, the Irish team will continue to use the forum for their sports medicine clinic.
We'll have our own full medical team here as well, but we've got great assistance and backup from the authorities here in Newcastle and in the forum.
Evan Wilkes, NBN News. And like
In fact, the heavy-duty equipment had to be called in to airlift $150,000 worth of building materials needed for the job. The National Parks and Wildlife Service is organising a major upgrade of the walking track and viewing platform on Tomaree Headland. And that's not all that required an airlift. Officers from the service were also dropping off supplies to the inhospitable Boondilbar Island. It is almost impossible to land supplies from the water for the project to relocate a colony of Gould's petrels, a rare and endangered seabird only found on nearby Cabbage Tree Island. David McElwain, NBN News.
We've got the Harley Davidsons coming, we've got the American Cruising Car Company, they're bringing Thunderbirds and Osmobiles. And
it was a homecoming of sorts for Major General Peter Cosgrove. He lived in Singleton while Commandant of the local Army Base's Infantry Centre in the late 80s and early 90s.
I've spent a total of 6 years in the Valley, counting 2 postings here at Singleton and 1 at Williamtown. So from my point of view, this part of New South Wales is a second home.
6 months ago, he was given the mammoth task of bringing peace to war-torn East Timor as commander of the Interfet Peacekeeping Force. Today, he was given the red carpet treatment at a special civic reception made a freeman of the city. It's just the 3rd time in Singleton's history the honour has been awarded. Speculation has been rife that the Major General might switch to politics, with an eye to becoming the Governor-General. Today, he poured water on the rumours.
I'm a soldier. I've got a few years to go in the Army. When that time is up, I'll retire happily to a private life. I have no other expectations or ambitions.
Blake Doyle, NBN News.
While talk has been positive all week that Matt Gidley would play, the only thing that didn't agree was his injured groin. The Australian centre clung to hope at today's training, but couldn't stop the inevitable.
That groin hasn't hit even close to 100%, and he's had to withdraw. So we're back to where we were against Canberra.
That means Tamana Tahu moves into the centres with Lenny Beckett back on the wing, who'll be out to show up his older brother Robbie, who lines up for Penrith.
Yeah, I will. He's always given me a few when I was younger, so I'll be out there to get him. It's been a dream one to come up against Robbie, also to play with him, so it should be good.
The day didn't start well for the squad. Adam McDougall ruled out for another week. The winger still suffering the effects of minor foot surgery to repair a tendon injury.
Probably about 10% off. It's very frustrating, but after having the operation, I didn't see the point in just risking the injury this week. It would be an injury that's probably going to last me the whole year if I don't get it right now.
Now, with the backline relatively injury-free, coach Warren Ryan has opted to keep a 4-forward bench with Troy Fletcher recalled.
Go with the guys that have trained with us all week, and Fletcher's trained with us all week, so we're going with a 4-man bench. We've still got Billy and Ruds. If we get stuck, Billy can go to hooker, Ruds can come out.
All the action on NBN Sunday afternoon from 4 o'clock.
A quick glance out the window is enough to know not everyone is happy with the plan to widen the road through Anna Bay. It could mean the loss of 10 houses and affect 35 properties in total.
Is it fair to have 19,000 cars thundering past people's homes when you've got an alternative that can put it through uninhabited areas? And I think that's got to be taken as a major consideration, both for quality of life and for safety issues.
John Turner, the Shadow Minister for Roads, attended a protest meeting in Port Stephens today, and he supports a new dual carriageway being built alongside power lines parallel to the existing Nelson Bay Road.
The RTA have said that their preferred route is to extend the existing carriageway, and we are calling for them to have another look at it, have another think about it, and look at safety aspects, particularly in relation to the final decision.
There are a number of alternatives which are possible, and while Port Stephens Council has supported widening the existing road in the past, that may change according to Councillor Ron Swan.
I feel personally this is probably a good way to go, provided it stands up to all the criteria that must be looked into, of course.
David McElwain, NBN News.
Anxious moments for Surfest organisers and ambulance officers after Brazilian surfer Tânio Barreto was dragged from the surf unconscious. The Mark Richards Pro entrant had only stepped off the plane from Brazil this morning, and it's thought fatigue caught up with him. He was taken to hospital for observation. Newcastle's Travis Lynch had every right to reach for the oxygen as well. After winning the under-16s final, he simply swapped rashies and headed back out for the under-20s decider. Sydney's Arne Foxton cut through some lacklustre surf to get the early lead, something he'd never lose. World number 1 ranked junior Adrian Buchan was left chasing the points and did everything he could to reel in the Sydney sider, but the man they call ace was trumped by Foxton in his first major pro junior win. Lynch third and fellow Novocastrian Mitchell Ross fourth. Adamstown knocked Edgeworth out of the finals race last year, and it was clear there was no love lost in early exchanges. But when things returned to soccer, it was beautiful to watch. Ian Tressiter's header spot on. It just wasn't to be the Rosebuds' day. This summed things up as Daniel McBreen poached one to make it 2-0. McBreen soon had a double, and the home side was up 3-0 after an opportunistic goal soon after. Both he and Tressiter scored 3 each in the 7-1 win for the Eagles. To horsepower on the man-made kind, and hundreds of it helped get Sydney driver Brett Loadsman home in the final sprint car feature race of the season at Newcastle. For the man they call Jump Jet, it was his first win of the season.
Despite looking decidedly casual, these ambulance officers were still dedicated to saving lives today. Their colourful protest had a serious purpose, highlighting the need for a review of officers' uniforms.
It might be a good uniform if you're just sitting in an office or somebody's bedroom, but unfortunately the wide and varied areas that ambulance officers get into, they need a far, far superior uniform to the uniform that's being worn now at this time.
The Ambulance Officers Union says the current uniform, which was designed in the 1950s, isn't practical and is unsafe, and a better style is readily available.
The style that the ambulance officers are after is used in the ACT, the South Australia, Victoria and other ambulance services, as well as many ambulance services across the world, so it's certainly readily available.
After negotiating with the officers today, bans were lifted late this afternoon. The New South Wales Ambulance Service has agreed to trial a new uniform, but a date is yet to be set for it to commence.
I think I've seen 5 reviews. Reviews have put forward recommendations. None of those recommendations have been acted upon to any meaningful extent.
A meeting has been planned between the union and the service at the end of the month. Tanya Carlisle, NBN News.
BHP is now working to find backers to build a massive container terminal on its riverfront land to rival Botany Bay and Brisbane in the freight shipping business. However, the state's Heritage Office, which has a say in state planning issues, has rejected BHP's plans, identifying almost 30 items on the site that it wants preserved.
When you hear that the Heritage Council or the Friends of the Rusty Pipes are suggesting that a blast furnace and 2 gas holders should be left on the site for heritage purposes or as an industrial museum, I think are quite, it's unrealistic.
While Heritage Office staff are based in Sydney, local experts agree that parts of the old steelworks must not be destroyed.
Well, it's really not the union's business, is it? Let the heritage people look at it and see whether they think it can be done and discuss it with the terminal operators.
Public meetings on the future of the site have attracted only small gatherings, and while BHP says it can't continue with certainty until the heritage issues are settled, Newcastle's Lord Mayor says progress is being made.
We're all very keen to see the container terminal go ahead, and I don't think the heritage question is going to be a problem because we're working through it.
It doesn't make sense to keep anything and just take it down and start again.
Paul Lobb, NBN News.
Some players will find themselves in the youth team this weekend as Newcastle coaching staff look to break a 2-game losing streak.
Lee's not too happy with 1 or 2, yeah. Again, depth will play a bit of a part there. Damien Smith was injured last week with a bit of a hamstring tweak, so he'd probably be a candidate, but whether he's going to be fit or not's another thing.
The 2-1 loss to Adelaide has put the pressure right on Newcastle, who sit in 4th place with a host of teams breathing down their neck. This weekend's opponents, Canberra, sit near the bottom, but come off a 2-goal win against the Premiers. Adding to club problems, Soccer Australia's refusal to hear an appeal to Andy Harper's 2-week suspension.
You get some guys that are sent off 3 and 4 times a season pretty regularly over 10 or 15 year careers, and they seem to get an automatic 1 week. And Harpsy's, I think, would have a pretty good record, and a little bit of controversy about the 2 weeks.
The team to play Canberra will be picked midweek.